I am so happy to be talking to Diana Kander today. Diana, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Colin.
Yes.
Colin. Colin. Colin, how are you?
I'm thrown off. I'm thrown off in a good way.
Could you hear it?
I
I'm still
sure
working
could.
on the acoustics.
I
Still,
sure could. Did you write and produce and
yeah, that was
perform
all me. That
that
was all me. I
song?
wrote you a song about your name.
You spelled my name correctly.
Oh,
I
thank
mean,
you.
we're already off
Yeah.
to a good start.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Let's see. If there's a term for what I feel like you just did,
Yes, what did I do?
it's called the golden window.
Oh, I made a worksheet. I filled out the worksheet before coming on the podcast today. I hope you didn't take a look at my LinkedIn where I posted the worksheet about
Oh my
coming.
gosh. No, I mean, like, I love that you came into this in a different way and, to set up the viewers a little bit and get back to the golden window idea. I read your book, Go Big or Go Home. It's the second of your books. Yes, it's the second of your books that I've read in one sitting, the other being All In Startup. And hopefully we'll talk about that a little bit later
Sure.
on. But I'm reading Go Big or Go Home, and you know, both my dog and I are on board. When I read a book I really like, I talk to my dog a lot, and I'm like,
Sure.
she gets it. She
Sure.
gets it. And so this is what it's this is what it's about. And this concept of the golden window is something I talk to people a lot, which is, well, I'll let you explain it, but it has to do with how you start intentionally to pull people in right away. So would you
I
talk
mean, you can
about that?
explain it. You've talked about this, so please, I want to hear you talk about it.
Well, just this idea that the first 30 seconds of your presentation, of your pitch, of your conversation can be a really important time to be intentional about how do I engage you? Just because you're here doesn't mean you're here, right? I mean, especially on Zoom, I might see your tile, but you're muted and your video's gone. You're not here. How do I pull you in? And so I teach people this a lot, but I never had a phrase for it until I read your book. So tell us, how did you come up with the golden window? I know that's something you do as a speaker, and yeah, how can we?
Yeah, I mean, just as somebody who gives a lot of presentations, people make decisions very quickly on
Mhm.
whether this is like fits into a box that they already know. Oh, this is this kind of thing. And as soon as they think they know what it is, their brain shuts down and goes into autopilot mode. So our job is to do something to get ourselves out of that box. And usually it's something about them, something unique to them, something surprising that can tell them, hey, this is different. You need to pay attention. And that's exactly what they're going to do.
Hmm. Yeah, there's a line in your book where you say if you want people to invest in you, you first have to invest in them,
Yes,
right? Invest time and research and know who they are, what they care about.
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean I think that can be helpful too because it gets you out of your own head and being critical of yourself and questioning every moment, just being like, I'm here with Diana. I'm here to talk to Diana. That's who this is about.
Yeah, I think that when you shift that focus from yourself to them, you're going to do so much better because you're not
Yeah.
stuck on how you look and what you're saying and how you're saying it.
And as a speaker, someone who's done a lot of presentations, you're in front of people. I think that's a refreshing evolution, right? You're not going, welcome to the me show,
Right.
which, would be tempting. So when did you notice that you made a shift at some point where it became more about them? That became the focus.
For me, I when I give a presentation, I don't want anybody looking at their phone, and that's
Hmm.
the metric that I use for success, which is a pretty high bar. And
Right.
so, what do I need to do to make that happen? And I just gave the Go Big or Go Home keynote. I hired somebody to videotape the whole thing. We had two cameras, and he was like, "Okay, we have one camera on you. Where would you like the other camera?" And I said, "Keep it on the audience the whole time."
Hmm.
And that is a very scary proposition to most people giving presentations. Like, you don't want to see that. You don't want to see them on their computers. You don't want to see, but I do. Like, that's the metric for myself. If they're not paying attention, then I'm not doing my job.
Right. And what do you do that gets them to pay attention? What have you found that works, And because I love this, and I think we agree, it's about, if they don't get it, if they don't like it, I didn't succeed at my job. That this beautiful opportunity to speak to them.
You've
So
got to create magic, Colin.
okay,
So
go on.
not to plug this book or anything.
Please plug the book.
No. But there are 5 different ways that you can create magic when you're giving a presentation and keep their attention resetting every couple of minutes by doing things that are out of the ordinary, unexpected, things that they just aren't used to.
What? Okay. Can I have one of those mugs, please?
What are you talking about, Colin, for the audio audience?
For the audio audience, Diana just sipped gracefully from a mug with the logo of this podcast on it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan.
You're bringing the heat. This is amazing.
It's meta. You gotta show the people that you're with that you care about them, that you thought about them, that you took the time to think about how this is going to be different than every other time you've done this.
Yeah. I dare say I'm feeling some emotion.
Are you? Some peaks? Yeah. Some mind-blowing moments?
I'm feeling some emotion because you're taking the time, you're making me feel special. And this is a concept in your book that I'm really excited to talk about, is this idea of creating an emotional experience.
Yes.
I work with a lot of business leaders and I work with a lot of educators. And so their tendency in their expertise is, who cares about me? Let's get into it. Let me give you the information and go from there. And I think maybe they miss the need for this emotional experience. And so, business and emotion, like, let's put that together. How is that? Well, I'll start with this. Why is that important to create an emotional experience?
So one of the most fascinating pieces of research that we found in the book is called the forgetting curve. And it's how science studies like how we pay attention to things and what happens after the presentation. And within an hour, your audience will have forgotten 50% of what you said. Within a week, they forget 90% of what you said. So if you want any chance of them remembering more than 10%, and it's probably not the 10% you want them to remember, you have to spike their emotions during the presentation. So when we feel an emotional surge, our brains go into like pay attention, remember everything mode. That's why if you're married, you remember like the weather on your wedding day, everything about it. But just 1 month before, you have no idea what the weather was or what happened. Like, it's gone. So the higher our emotions, the more we remember everything. And our job as presenters is to create these spikes in emotion to help them grab onto the things that we're saying and doing.
Yeah, I mean, that's very convincing. Now, I'm the choir in this example. I couldn't agree with you more. So before we get into ways to create that emotional experience, emotional connection, what is some of the resistance that you find? Did you have any resistance to this idea? Or, how do people, what do they need to hear to be convinced, I guess?
Yeah, well, I think most people believe they make decisions rationally. And so that they weigh the pros and cons of something, and then they make like those rational decisions. And when we lie to ourselves about how we make decisions, then that's how we think other people do it. Right. And so that was one of the biggest ahas, is emotions are how we make decisions, almost every decision. And our subconscious, there's research in the book that says people can put you in an MRI machine and tell you your decision 11 seconds before you know what it is. Like, your body knows, then it tells your brain, and then your brain rationalizes why you made the decision. Wow. And if you include some of these elements, you create that gut feeling where they're like, I don't know what it is, but that Colin presentation was right on. That's what we should do. And I know what it is. It is an emotional peak that you created that you can help others create too. And, I spent my career teaching people how to innovate and launch new products and services, but this idea is so big. I was like, I have to tell everyone about this. It's such a big idea that can help us make impact in the world.
I love that. I love too. I was laughing when you said we lie to ourselves that we're rational decision makers. I do a lot with personal finance. And
yes.
economics is based on these models wherein rational actors are like, you've already lost me, right?
Yeah.
You've already lost me. These are humans.
Yeah.
We only make rational decisions. So like, why doesn't the model work? It doesn't work because we are emotionally driven, mood driven,
Yeah.
like you said, sometimes we don't even know what it was that we connected to.
That's okay, because your rational brain is a lot slow. Like, we think that we have this like body to move our brain around and then that's the focal point, but your brain can process like 40 or 50 pieces of information a second. Your body, like your gut, it's like millions of pieces of information a second. It's just so much smarter and wiser. Wow. And that's why your gut instinct is usually the right one if you have a good connection to it, if you can feel it. And so how do we talk to the gut of our audience? How do we make them feel that what we're trying to say is important? And that's a big deal. If you just talk to the brain, they're going to forget it instantly.
Yeah, totally. I've heard people say, you speak to the heart, the mind will follow. If you want to be crass, you speak to the heart, the wallet will follow, I guess. But I think, whatever it is that you're quote unquote selling, all it is asking people to take an action or make a decision. And that's a huge ask to step into someone's life. And so I really like what you're saying. I can't wait to listen to this again so I can actually absorb more of what you're saying. But I think that, yeah,
let's do it.
You've thrown me off because.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I want to go back. Oh, I know. It was the gut. That was it.
Yeah.
We're talking about, when you mentioned the gut, it reminded me in your book, you talked about how when you're making pitches B2B, you would think, oh, we definitely don't want to be doing the emotional stuff there. But actually the research goes the other way.
That you need more of an emotional connection you need more of that gut feeling, the bigger the deal. And that's because they have so much more on the line. Like, if you buy the wrong cord at the store, you could just go back and return it. But if I, in a business setting, procure a $5 million piece of software that I then install over the next 3 years and it doesn't work, boy, is my career on the line. So I really have to have that trust and that emotional connection to that product. That's just what the research shows in order to be able to say yes.
Yeah, I love that. You had said something like the greater the risk, the more we lean into trusting our gut.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, so we're talking about ways to create emotional experience. And you talk about storytelling, which is a big love of mine. And I think something that perplexes a lot of people. I think we've all been to workshops that say you should be telling stories.
Yes, tell stories.
And sometimes I worry that it's like, yeah, okay, how? I mean, some people are not naturally great at it. And I dare say a lot of people, and our stories are too long, or they have too many different points, or they're not relevant to the listener. And so that's what I want to put that question to you, though, is if someone is not a naturally good storyteller, why should they try to be better at it, and how? Like, what are some elements that would help?
So story is the best way for us to connect and to drive people to act. Like, that's the best way to get anybody to feel anything.
Yeah.
But even if you feel like telling a story, and it happens very naturally for all of us, it doesn't mean that you're telling it in a good way for the audience. Again, we're talking about making everything about them. Yeah. And even in writing this book, I figured out that I was telling my story incorrectly. Like, I think oftentimes we're like the court reporter, like, this happened and then this happened and then here I am. And that's not how to create any kind of emotional connection with the audience. They got to know, like, all the different stages that you went through of, like, oh, and then it got worse, and then it got worse, to be able to connect with you. And that's, like, in terms of the origin story, that's the fun stuff that they really want to hear. Not like, it was hard, I started from the bottom, now here I am, like, that's not a great story.
skip right past that. Everything's been great.
Yada, yada, yada. Yeah. But you also have to, like, that's on one hand. And on the other hand, remember the science we learned behind it is that your brain releases dopamine every time you talk about yourself. And it's the same level of dopamine as you get when you eat sugar and when you have sex. So it's a lot of dopamine when you talk about yourself. And that's why it's often hard to stop. And many people leave a presentation assessing how they feel about it afterwards. And that's your dopamine lying to you. So if you walk out and you're like, that feels great, you probably talked about yourself way more than you should have. So it's actually like a very counterintuitive assessment that you need to make. Yeah. You need to make it more about the person that you're talking about, how your content matters to them in order to get them to pay attention. Because you don't want to just feel great. You want to close the deal. You want them to act on what you said. You want them to remember what you said.
Right.
And you're not going to get that by spending the whole time talking.
It's kind of like your research starts beforehand and then continues during the talk, during the presentation. Like I must continue to stay curious about you and what you're about and how you're responding to this.
I mean, one of the tools in the book is to turn the other person into a co-creator. So we say, yes, and, you know, like it's so seductive to another person when we can have a conversation with them. Sometimes I have a phone call with people and I'll time how long it has been since I spoke last, you know, and in an hour phone call, sometimes 20 minutes before I say anything on either end. And I'm not going to interject just for fun, you know, because I got my timer going, but you got to be self-conscious of that in a conversation and be like, Colin, what do you think? Does that happen to you?
Yeah. Yeah. It takes work.
Yeah.
You know, when I did a coaching training, that was the hardest thing. You'd come out of it and you'd be like, I don't know how to talk now. Because I feel like I shouldn't be talking, but I think you move through that to where, and there are apps for this too. You know, if you do a coaching session, you can check the percentage of how much you're talking for them. And I think some of the ones where I've worked the hardest, but got the deepest, right, are the ones where I'm that smaller percentage. You're right. That's really hard to do.
I think about it like you have a flashlight and whoever's talking, that's who the flashlight's on, you know?
Yeah.
And when you say something, Colin, in my head, I'm like, I have an interesting thing to add. I have a life experience that's relevant to this. Yeah. But that's you taking the flashlight, pointing it to yourself. How can you instead ask a follow-up question to get them to talk just a little bit longer? Because you're now pointing the spotlight on them, which is how you get them engaged in the conversation.
What do you enjoy about shining the light on them?
Oh, well, you get to learn. Like you're not going to learn anything by doing all the talking, you know? And there's so much in the world that we have assumptions about that we can uncover. Like I've been looking for this software that records like who's talking and I can't find one. So after this, I want you to share with me what that software is, because I think it would be really powerful, like in presentations even, to record how much of it you're talking versus you're interacting with the audience.
Yeah. Yeah, because you always think you're listening more than you are. The data tells a different story.
I mean, did you use this software? Like, did you see it show you?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's Otter AI for transcription.
Yeah.
And then there's a tool called, I think Otter in the report will tell you the percentage. There's also one called Fathom, which is built into Zoom, and it also kicks out those percentages. And yeah, I mean, I think becoming aware of that challenged me to actually to make that effort, because like I teach people about listening, but I'm also cursed with being a public speaker and I want to talk.
You have interesting things to say.
You could say, yeah, oh, that story reminds me of my story. And, you know, you jump in. And so it takes work. But I think, you know, going all the way back to your first book, you're somebody who, Diana took another drink from her mug.
From a Colin mug. It's so beautiful. Look at these colors.
That for
I
the
love
audio. It has my own face on the mug. So it's a little surreal for me. No, I mean, going all the way back to All In Startup, and I wanted to tell you that was one of the books that really underscored listening for me. And I should say, well, before we talk that side, in your personal life or you as a person, when did you realize that listening was important.
Can I just tell you, like, we have all these things we want to learn. We want to learn about Chat GPT and AI.
Yeah.
And the truth is, we're doing the basics like all wrong. So I learned when I had to go to physical therapy for knee pain that I was walking all wrong. Like, I'm just bad at walking and standing. I learned when I hired a coach to help me with my presentations that I wasn't breathing correctly, like in everyday life. So these basics, of just like things you think you're killing at. You have so much to learn. And if that's the case, then, we just think, oh, you know what? I got like 80-90% of what I need to know to function in this world. And the reality is it's like 0.0001%. Like you're barely squeaking by. And so if that's your mental model, like there's so much for me to learn, then you go out into the world saying, what can I learn today?
Yeah. I mean, it takes that extra thoughtfulness, but you're right. That's where all the learning happens. It's amazing how deep you can get with somebody if you stop talking about yourself and just ask more questions. Did anyone guide you to this personally? Like, did you know a great listener in your life?
No, but I've read lots and lots of books on listening, which sounds so silly, but I read books on how to be a better interviewer when I had a podcast. I read books on how to have better conversations. And I would just implore anybody in the audience, like, think of something you're awesome at and then go find a book on it. And I challenge you to not find, 5 things that you could be doing even better. That's how we grow, right? Like as soon as you're satisfied, you start deteriorating. So learning is the only way for us to stay young, stay fresh, and continuously innovate what it is that we do.
Mic drop.
So I will tell you, this book, Go Big or Go Home, I co-authored it with the CEO of this company. They design experiences for other businesses. And he called me up. We had a mutual friend and he was like, I want to write a book about my company. I thought you would do it with me. And I was like, yeah, zero interest. No, thank you. I took the call on my treadmill, walking my dog, just zero interested. Yeah. And he was like, hey, well, would you take a tour of our building? And I said, yeah, okay, I'll do that. And while he was giving me the tour and showing me how they do things and telling me about this move that they have to close twice as many deals. So their usual close rate is like 45%, but when they do this move that we talk about in the book, they close 90% of these really hard to win deals. I was like, wow, that's cool. And so by the end of it, I was begging him to co-author this book together. Wow. And none of that would have happened if I was like, oh, I'm not interested. If I wasn't like, okay, well, let's see what happens at this tour. I'll go. That's it. Just following your curiosity and not having all the answers can lead you on adventures that you didn't even know about.
Amazing. I want to make sure I don't not say this or however that English should be, which is I keep bringing up All in Startup.
Yes.
And that book I read in one shot. It's a novel.
Yes.
With business principles. It's about two people at the Texas or the World Series of Poker. There's kind of a will they, won't they aspect.
Yes.
One's a founder and
PG-13
struggling. Struggling entrepreneur. And, you bold print the concepts. And I just thought every book should be like this. And I think one of the things I got from it was this idea of stop selling and just keep being curious and listening. And in my own career, I've recently had a breakthrough I wanted to share with you, which is that I get hired to speak. And so when I have those initial calls, I talk a lot about my speech and how it will help be a good event. And as I've gotten to know these people more, I've started to ask questions like, well, what is this speech? Where is this speech in the ecosystem? Where does this fit in your whole year? What is this? How does this serve your goals as a program? And I'm finding whole new lanes of need and interest that I can support that, if I was just talking about and selling like I was, to be honest, I was missing this whole new world of, ooh, that's a problem I'd love to work with you on.
Yeah. So one of the things we talk about in the book is that most people pitch in the wrong order. So you start by saying, hey, let me tell you a little bit about myself. And then let me tell you about what I do, how my speeches work. And then I'll tell you why you should say yes, how all my clients love me. Yeah. And that is the opposite of the order. The order should start with like, well, let's talk about you first. I don't want to say what I do until I understand what it is that you're looking for. Right. And when you start with them first, or you come in having researched, what it is that they're looking for, and then letting them fill in the pieces, I think you get a much richer discussion and you connect much better. I was doing it too. I mean, this book has changed how I pitch myself for speaking deals. And I will tell you, I'm having more fun. I'm closing a much higher percentage of my leads. And I feel like I'm building like deeper connections with people much faster. And that is like a very surprising benefit.
I mean, and this is a powerful story for people reading your book who want to sell more, but also for people who hate the idea of selling, right? They just want to connect. They don't want to get to that numbers and dollars part of the conversation. And so I think something you've helped me with, and this book is a great example of, is that putting the focus on them and just listening and just connecting and building that relationship. And maybe the sale comes now, maybe the sale comes years later.
You don't even need to be in sales to get value out of it. If you're a person looking for a job, if you're an educator trying to create content that's memorable, like this book has already helped 4 people get jobs. Like it's been out like a week. So one of the stories is in the book, actually. Like while we were writing it, my friend needed a job and I was like, oh, let's use this method. And I think this is the best way to close the deal on getting an amazing new job that you think might be just out of your reach. Like that's what this method helps you do, like win the big deals, the things that you really want. And I think that these are skill sets of connection and relationship that can make our lives better on a number of fronts, even with our significant others.
Right. Right. And I love the way you write these books that are really fast and fun to read. And, to more of that, right?
Yeah. When you read a third of this book, you're done. Like it's a third of a book, You
outdid yourself when you said the book takes like 2 hours to read. I was like, no, it can't be. It's really great. How can people find the book, Diana?
Well, I wanted to do something special. As you know from the worksheet, people remember the beginning and the end. So I actually, for your listeners, want to give the book for free. And I would love for you to buy it on Amazon, but I don't want that to stand in your way. So you just send me an email, diana@dianakander.com. This is an impromptu thing I just decided to do for your podcast, Colin. Ooh. So you just tell me what you want the book for, and you pay for shipping for the hardcover. If you want the ebook, I'll send it to you for free. I just want you to have the content and, go big. Go big in your life. Go big in every way. And how can you do better, Colin, than free? You can't. You can't beat this deal that I'm offering to you.
You can't do better than free. You're crazy if you think you can do better than free. Amazing. I love that. I think that the people who I admire and I like to learn from are people who just want to get good ideas out into the world so that people can move their life forward, right? And that's kudos to you. That's very much the spirit.
Oh, thank you.
I'm getting is like, we just want people to know solutions.
It'll change your life. I'm just so confident that if I get this book into your hands, you're going to recommend it to other people.
Amazing. All right. Well, then to do that, you need to email Diana. It's diana@dianakander.com.
Pretty easy.
The book is at gobigorgohome.com if you want to check it out, but
that's not true. That's just not the that's not the URL. I just don't want to. I don't own that URL. That's something else. That's I don't know where that's interesting.
It is a phrase that's traveled along for many years.
It's popular. It's not just me, but you can find it on Amazon. Okay. You can find it on my website, dianakander.com. It'll take you right to it. So lots of places you can go.
Awesome. Well, yeah. And I hope that you do. I hope you enjoy the book and then you can tell people about it and get these ideas out there. I love it. I've been using it with clients And then I'm like, see, if you didn't believe it when I said it, Diana said it. So let's go. Let's go. What are we talking about here? But I think what I need to do is start printing their faces on mugs.
Yep. I think
That's what I'm
it.
taking. That's what I'm taking from this call.
Like a t-shirt. I got lots of ideas.
I bet you do. Well, thank you. It was an absolute pleasure, Diana. I've followed your work for years. Love your books. Love your talks. You're doing stand-up in April. Good luck. That's going to be one of the best feelings. And thank you for your time today.
Oh, thank you so much, Colin.